Namaste, hello friends, and welcome back. Let's begin with some questions and see where that takes us. I also have a question, so that implies there was a previous. I have another. We'll just start with this one. It'll get there in the end. I also have a question. If a person or animal is very sick and suffering terribly, is euthanasia bad karma for the person who gets it, or for the person who chooses to give it to their animal, or for the person who performs euthanasia? Okay, this is quite a commonly asked question, talking about euthanasia, taking aged people and assisting their departure, or sick people, assisting their departure in such clinics as are available in countries where that's legal, or wherever you may be. One can prevaricate and make this a huge, long, complicated debate, but the first precept is the first precept, that we refrain from killing. It is no more complicated than that. An answer to a question, both. Because killing or ordering for another being to be killed is negative karma. It is breaking the first precept. To differing degrees based on intention. If one decides oneself to end one's life, this is a different and more complicated area of karma and karmic law, vipaka being the results of karma. Karma being actions. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about where you have a pet, an animal, whom has no ability to speak up for itself or make its own decision, where you take it upon yourself to make the decision to ask the vet to kill your pet. It doesn't matter whether you call it putting it to sleep, or putting it down, or euthanasia. It is ending this being's life. It is killing. Now, I'm not just trying to be harsh saying this. You have to put yourself in this being's position at the point of nearing death. If you are a fully attained arahant and are no longer subject to clinging, to desire, and therefore free from potential rebirth into samsara, then of course you will have no qualms about as to whether or not you die or live. You're beyond that. You are beyond suffering within this lifetime and are no longer to be reborn into samsara, as was the Buddha when he attained to paranibbana. So some say that the Buddha intentionally ate poisonous food to kill himself, as he was aged, very old, in his 80s, 84, something like this, and was very much suffering with pain and dysentery at this time. On his way he was to die, but on his way there was unable to go any further and was offered some food which he knew was bad. He actually didn't want his sangha, his monks, his people helping him, his followers, to have this food, so he ate it and said, do not share this with others, knowing it to be not good, and it finished him off. Now some could say that was killing himself, but he knew he was not to be reborn further. He had no more clinging. He had attained to the final attainment of Buddhahood. He was the perfectly enlightened one. We don't know what happens next. Maybe we think by killing ourselves we'll be free from suffering. But this we do not know. If there is nothing after death, there is nothing to know. If you're to be reborn in a lower realm, an unfortunate place, and depending on your beliefs, then the act of killing is going to ensure that. It's certainly not going to ensure you go to a better place in a hurry. But we cannot know that. However, all that being said, as you approach this moment, a near-death experience, unless you are an arahant and no longer subject to clinging, you do not want to die. Now I'm saying from experience that at that moment you are not saying, oh, I just want to die, I want to die, I want to die. You're saying, no, 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 I'm still clinging to this life. Now I'm not ready. This is not the time. However much the pain was there, this clinging is so strong, this desire, which is unwholesome, and this is the practice of this Buddhist practice, is to actually eradicate that desire, but it is that strong, this defilement, this kilesa, that it even outweighs the pain involved in staying alive. Now you think of the lengths people, addicts, go to get their next fix, the suffering they put themselves through to get their next fix of drugs or alcohol or whatever. Knowing the pain they're experiencing, the suffering they're putting themselves through, just to get what they're addicted to. Well, we are addicted to life. And when you come to the end of that life, you'll go through anything to keep it, to get a minute more, a second more. Now, I'm speaking from the experience of this life, but of course I'm speaking from a relatively young person. Maybe I'd have a different view in 20, 30 years' time, when my body is even more decrepit and I've had such a long time in this life. I cannot speak from that experience. But I would say most animals and most all beings are not wanting to die. And this usually overwhelms the pain side, the suffering side, the desire to live. And unless you know to the contrary, who are you, who are we, to make that decision for another? If someone asks you to do it, you can just decline. And they can go about means to do it themselves if they are so inclined. That is their karma. That is their intention. But there is no getting round it. Killing is killing. Now, I know the other questions this subscriber has asked relate to this also. So I am labouring this first precept point a little more strongly to this answer so that I can relate it to the next couple of questions. But refraining from killing means just that. There's no grey areas in these 5 precepts. As much as people might like to say, but there's this reason, that reason, it's for the greater good. No. The whole point of this practice is it's simple. 5 precepts. We refrain from killing, stealing, or taking which isn't ours, yes? Not given. So just stealing doesn't mean breaking into a bank, a house, or shoplifting from a shop. It means if there's something there and you like the look of it, you don't just take it. hoping no one will notice. That is as much stealing as going into a bank with a gun. Stealing is stealing. Taking is stealing, yes? So, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct. Really, there's no grey areas in that either. It can be a little more complicated. But if the what do we say? If this is not between two consenting beings with respect to each other and for their mutual benefit, then it is, to a degree, misconduct. If there is any coercion, any other reason than for the mutual benefit of each other in this sexual relationship, then it can be considered as inappropriate or misconduct. So if a student believes it may further their academic career by a relationship with their teacher, even if they really respect and like their teacher for whatever reasons, if there's anything slightly doubtful about their reasons for entering into a relationship, then from the, not the subordinate, but from the teacher's point of view, it is misconduct, because this should be realized. If there is any doubt, it is misconduct. So, misconduct is nothing to do with the types of relationships, the numbers of relationships, the locations of relationships. They can be of any gender orientation, they can be of any number of partners, they can be in any manner of places, in any manner of ways. But they have to be for the mutual benefit of each other. Now that is fairly simple, isn't it? Black and white. The only reason people ever make these precepts more complicated is because they're looking for little escape clauses, little ways out, excuses, in other words. But this isn't a court of law for debate. It isn't a place where we offer mitigating circumstances. If the intention is there to take something that is not yours, it is breaking the first precept. It doesn't matter what reasons there were to do that. Even if by taking this, it was to save this person's life, you'd say, well, that might be a good thing because you're then not killing. Well, you weren't killing anyway. Taking that does not make any difference in the law of karma. Your action of taking is taking for whatever reason it is. It is stealing. Prevention. If someone's holding a gun, I'm preempting questions that may arise from this, to their head, and you take the gun away, disarming them, thus, that is not stealing, because then you are not intending to keep the gun. To the contrary, you will make arrangements for the gun to be disposed or returned to the person when they're of more stable mind. So before that question, because people will go to any lengths, it seems, to try and debate these very simple 5 rules. So that's why I'm reiterating them a little. Because sila, these 5 precepts, are the foundations, the basis of this practice. Without that, there is no practice. It doesn't matter if you can enter the go through the 8 jhanas and sit in bliss. Well, you never could. You won't even enter or approach samadhi if you're breaking the 5 precepts. You might think you are, but you are not going to maintain that absorption. You will not maintain that state. And you will not enter even the first jhana in reality if you have killed, stolen. In the past, as long as you understand that, then of course, yes. Because what you've done in the past cannot be changed. But if you know that that's done, it's over, it's finished. But if you still think that if you still have the mind that, so let's say you work in an abattoir, killing animals for food, and you've stopped doing that job today, and you start keeping the 5 precepts, then you'll have no obstacles in your way towards progressing through meditation into the jhanas. But it may be very difficult because it's going to take a long time to get over the bad karma of having killed, bad actions you have done by killing. But there's no intention to ever do it again. So you have let go of that bad karma. You've put it down. Doesn't mean you won't have to pay back. We cannot determine the vipaka, the results of karma. But in this moment, you can now move forward with a clear conscience. But if you're going back to work tomorrow to continue in the abattoir killing animals, then there's really no hope for you as far as this practice is concerned. It is killing, I'm sorry to say. So you need to find another career. But that's a hypothetical situation. I was trying to cover all eventualities and potential questions that may arise out of these comments. So, after sexual misconduct, lying, again, it's black and white, no lying. And then finally, no intoxicants. Anything that affects this thinking mind in any way, and you can easily work this one out. They have laws usually about driving in most countries these days. If there's any suggestion in the law that you shouldn't do something before driving, then that is the thing we call intoxicants. So it doesn't include drinking coffee. There's no laws about that and driving a car or an aeroplane or a coach full of people. It doesn't include smoking cigarettes. There's no laws about that and driving a car or an aeroplane or a coach full of people. But marijuana or alcohol, there are laws in most countries against that and driving a car or an aeroplane and a coach full of many people, for sure. Why? Because your mind is affected. You're unable to focus 100%. You have not got mindfulness, sati, mindfulness, the 7th point on the Noble Eightfold Path, and therefore will not be able to attain samadhi, the 8th point on the Noble Eightfold Path. And this whole practice is about the Noble Eightfold Path. Half of it, 4 points of it, are related to sila. We can divide it into 3 categories of sila, samadhi, panya, moral virtue, meditation, and wisdom. The first is wisdom, right view, understanding all of this. That's it, just one of those 8 points. Then right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood. The next 4 are sila, moral virtue. All good actions of body, speech and mind. Right effort covers a little bit of sila, the effort we need to keep ourselves on the straight and narrow, not breaking our precepts, our 5 precepts, but usually is more applied to right effort in keeping mindfulness, which also helps towards not breaking precepts by keeping mindfulness. Another reason why we don't take intoxicants, because we lose mindfulness and then we can break the other 4 precepts. Drinking alcohol is not illegal, is not morally wrong for most people in the world, or many other intoxicants. But by the taking of them, by clouding your judgment, clouding your view, not being so mindful, not being so focused, the likelihood is that you could more easily break the other 4 precepts of killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, or lying as a result of an intoxicant. So So this is why that's very important. So killing, no killing, whatever the reason. I had a little dog here dying recently. In the West, one would have probably gone to the vet. There wasn't one very handy here, not a vet, not for dogs. And he wouldn't have made it the distance we would have had to have travelled. But if, say, that was my first reaction, to go to the vet, but thinking about this as he was dying on my lap, the poor thing, suffering. I was thinking in England I would have gone to the vet, and the vet would have said, nothing we can do. Got his what's this thing? Syringe out, maybe. I think they're probably a little more subtle about it these days. They would have said, how do you feel about it, and this and that. But in the end, the option would have been there. Now, of course, as a Buddhist and as a Buddhist monk, I wouldn't have taken that option. And I might have even thought, I wouldn't have thought twice about going to the vet. I even considered going to the vet here. But that wouldn't have been an option, because this poor little dog didn't have this option. And when we're going to die, we will die. We cannot avoid it. The thing we fear about dying is really not so much what happens afterwards, because we do not know. Maybe some of us do fear what might happen afterwards, but that is only imagination. But what is perhaps quite real and tangible is the pain of dying. We envisage and we imagine that it is quite painful. But this is a lot the reason we have Maranasati, which is death contemplation, and the practice of which, for monks, certainly in Thailand and in Buddhist countries, is to spend a lot of time with dying people and dead people. And you'll see that because it is quite acceptable to have painkillers at death. Now, they are intoxicants, yes, to some extent. Morphine, for instance. But the intention there is to alleviate pain for medical reasons, and not to cloud judgment, not to cloud mindfulness, but to free it up in those circumstances where you are literally dying and you're in such pain that your mindfulness, your focus would be clouded by that pain. So this is acceptable. But even so, I've seen people dying without such aids, and generally speaking, the pain is there. But as I've mentioned before in a previous talk, your body creates, at this point, throughout this natural human instinct of fear, so many chemicals and hormones that this is a blocker, a natural drug to pain. So however severe the pain, when you're actually facing death, this pain is the least of your concerns. And when you're with the dying, it's good to remind them, if they have a clear enough mind, and even if they can just at least hear you, or maybe not, but so in the hopes that some understanding, some dharma might sink in, to remind them of the good they have done in their lives, the good karma. Not in a technical way, but just say, do you remember how kind you were to this person? Or do you remember how much you enjoyed such and such a thing in your life? To bring the positive thoughts there into their mind. And with this and those hormonal and chemical reactions of the body, the pain is so much less. Even with this poor little dog, I was saying, well, you've brought so much happiness to me in just a couple of weeks I've known you, and many other people who've seen you. So just know that your life here was good. You created such good karma, and may you have a happy rebirth and in a very happy place. So it was his time to go, I think, and he made it a little bit more quickly. But there was no way that it's appropriate or okay to assist in that process, to speed it along. Well, I think that's, dare I turn the page, because it's going to be the same question, because that's it also. Another question, this is from the same subscriber, but subscriber, thank you for these questions. They're very good questions. and I appreciate them. I have replied to you directly, of course, as I try to always. Sometimes I might reply these days saying that I will cover this in the next questions and answers talk, but more often than not, I do give an answer prior. So, another question. If another country invades your country, is going to war to defend your country breaking the first precept and or bad karma? If it involves killing, yes. Okay, so if you're a soldier and you go out and kill someone, even if it's under orders, it's killing. You have to say, no, I'm not doing it, and get a court-martial or whatever, even if it involves you being killed. Doesn't matter. It does matter that you're killed, but you don't kill. The person ordering you to go and kill, to some extent, is even worse, because they're their intention is indiscriminately ordering many to go out and kill even more numbers. So they're multiplying their bad karma by huge amounts in that respect. Killing is killing, so we can flick to the next question quickly. I'll just find I have another question before I get to this other one. I have another question. Is eating meat, which you did not kill yourself, in brackets, breaking the first precepts? Why aren't all Buddhists vegetarians? Oh. I've done something funny to the page, sorry. Now, where's it gone? Oh, okay, I've got to go like that. So eating meat not killed by yourself is not breaking the first precept. If you know meat has been killed for your benefit, then that is not allowed. It is not technically breaking the first precept, but monks are not allowed to eat meat if it's been killed purposely for us. And I would say that lay Buddhists should apply that to themselves also, because to some extent it is knowledge of it's encouraging killing. I mean, I'll firstly qualify this rather than add it on the end. I'm actually myself a vegetarian, so that's out of choice though, not because I'm a Buddhist. Albeit it happened at the same time. I was in India, and it's easier to be a vegetarian in India than eat meat. So it's generally a vegetarian country. They even phrase it like eating meats. In England or in the West, you have vegetarian restaurants. Here, which are few and far between. Here you have non-veg restaurants, which are few and far between, if you understand the reverse concept there. It's quite funny and very confusing, really. But, no, I don't eat meat, but, so that's monks. So it's a matter of choice for Buddhists, whether you're vegetarian or not. And of course, under the 5 precepts, and this is really what this comes down to, if there's a whole load of chickens in the supermarket, they're already dead. Eating them is not killing. But you may have other arguments, but it's encouraging the meat market, this and that. Yes, I'm a vegetarian, I'm not arguing with you there, but it's nothing to do with this first precept. This is what I'm trying to emphasize. It is not killing. Now, I have to accept, however, as a monk, anything that's offered to me, food, put into my bowl, even if it's iffy, off, bad, like the Buddha. He had to accept that food, as he knew his monks would have to accept it. So he had it all. He said, you put it all in my bowl. Greedy, yes, but he knew it was off. It was pork, it was off, it was meat. It was going to do his monks harm. So out of compassion, he ate it all. Well, he had it all in his bowl and ate enough of it to finish him off. But then his other monks, his coming behind him, wouldn't have to accept that dish. But we have to accept all dishes. I've had food put in my bowl that's made me think, right, now I can't really eat the rest of the food in my bowl. So I've just left that food. We don't have to eat it, but we have to accept it. Because we're not allowed to refuse the opportunity for someone to offer dana, to practice generosity. And this is what they're doing. They're not intending to give us something horrible. And it's also a matter of taste and opinion. So if someone thinks it's okay to eat meat, they can offer you meat. Now there are monks who would say, no, I'm not having meat, I don't eat meat. But technically it is not in the Vinaya that we can do that. Although it's a little grey as to whether, I don't know enough about it to know whether it does say you have to accept it or not. But generally, etiquette, we receive anything that's offered. You'll find, though, these days, most people are not going to offer Buddhists meat, or especially in the West, they assume that all Buddhists are meat. And certainly in the Mahayana traditions, they assume you don't eat onions or garlic or leeks even, which are of the same family, because that's part of their own, they're slightly different take on things. They're slightly different Vinaya in that respect. But as far as, and some religions don't eat root vegetables because it involves digging up and maybe killing insects on the way. But for Theravada Buddhist monks, we can basically eat anything. There are 4 things we can't eat: human, snake, lion, and one other thing which I can't remember. For some mythological reason, I'm not, well, human obviously, snake and lion. I think the practical side of those things is with the lion, you know, they know if you've eaten lion, they can smell it on you from a long distance, possibly, or tiger. I'm getting my lions and tigers mixed up again, maybe. I'm sure it says lion though in the rules, in the Vinaya. Someone can pick me up on that if they're so inclined. It's not that important, but there's very few things we can't eat. Oh, raw food. We can't eat raw food, technically, unless it's edible. So, you know, salad is not raw, it's edible. But we can't eat raw rice, raw grain, or raw meat, because it needs to be cooked. And there's more practical reason, again, health reasons. I can't really think of the snake thing, but just I wouldn't fancy it anyway, eating snake, so I'm not going to worry myself about it. So yeah, it's a matter of choice for vegetarians. What was really the question? And you've answered the question yourself, which you did not kill yourself, breaking the first precept. No, you didn't kill it. So back to the simplicity of the first precept. No. There's a simple answer there. I've gone a bit deeper than that. Oh, no, but you did ask why aren't all Buddhists vegetarian or vegan? I'm actually, technically, I'm vegan too, because I don't eat dairy products or eggs. Does that make me vegan? I just don't eat those things. Now, this is not really for any ethical reason why I don't eat these things, because they're all available and they're all already dead or not, they're going to go to waste if they're not used. I was living a nomadic life, a life of solitude, not earning money, not working, living day to day like a monk for quite a long time before I was a monk, and even quite a long time before I was a Buddhist. And I found that I could live very cheaply, very easily, without any, as a vegan. Because vegetables don't go off very quickly. You don't need a fridge. While I was living outside, I had no refrigeration, except in the winter when it was very cold. But in the summer, there was no way to keep butter, cheese, eggs, milk fresh for more than a few hours without a fridge. You need a home, a house for dairy products. Also in India, the variety of cheese and such, there isn't. I mean, you have some paneer and that's it, which is eaten that same day. It's quickly made. It's more like curds and whey, one part of that, than a cheese, really. It doesn't go through the maturing process because of the conditions, the weather. I think in the northeast it's different, but in the south it's certainly very hard to get cheese, except imported, which has been frozen and all sorts of, would be very expensive. So the reason I became vegan was money. I was thinking, well, it's a waste of money. If I can just live on potatoes, which were in abundance where I lived, and still are. I mean, even now, when I returned to England, when I was able to cook, when I was in England, before I was a monk, I'd buy sacks of potatoes for the equivalent of 100 rupees or £1 or a little bit over $1. No idea about euros. They are after my time. But given those, a 5 kilogram bag of potatoes like that, which would last you 3 or 4 days, just with some salt and pepper and oil, boiled or fried or whatever, cooked up, delicious, delicious meal for 3 days for less than £1. Whereas like a packet of sausages or bacon or some meat was very expensive, and then you had to keep it and not let it go off. Whereas your bag of potatoes would last a long time. So for practical reasons, economical reasons, I chose to be a vegan. And now I have an abundance of choice of food if I'm in Thailand offered to me and here, but I still choose to stay that way because I enjoy, especially in India, the vegetarian diet, and most Asia, and Thailand also. But India's they've got some very wonderful spices and cooking techniques and ways of making food. You would never even think it's vegetarian. You don't think about it. It doesn't cross my mind. So there we are. Oh, how do I keep on track? I should just read my written answers, shouldn't I? I did remember to look at the time. Oh, wow, it goes so quickly, doesn't it? So I better go for a short one. Let's go for this one. This is not necessarily a short answer, although it's a short question. Our Heavenly Father, as a concept, seems gentler and kinder than the more earthly Buddha. What are your opinions on this, Phra Dan? Well, it's not something I generally would have opinions on, being as that I'm not a believer in our Heavenly Father, or am I a disbeliever in such? However, such requires belief. The more, as you put it, earthly Buddha was a man, a human being, as was son of this Heavenly Father, Jesus Christ, whom also was a man, a living being, whom both were teachers, very renowned, of even today the most important and famous teachers, along with other prophets in history, and have changed the world phenomenally as human beings. They require no belief. All gods whom don't manifest themselves in the way, some will say that was the manifestation of gods in their various prophets, but that aside, that also requires belief. Without belief, we only have this more earthly Buddha or more earthly Jesus. So, as a concept, seems gentler and kinder. Well, of course, we possibly wouldn't have bothered to imagine a nasty, horrible God. We do in the form of the devil, Beelzebub, whomever, whatever you wish to call him, or in other religions, different. We have this Mara in Buddhism, who isn't a god really, is a kind of an idea of our kilesas, our temptations, the culmination of greed, hatred and delusion. But often we see this as a figure, because humans need, as I've spoken about when talking about Buddha Rupas, statues and such like, something to focus their attention on. Like when we're meditating, we have a meditation object to focus our awareness on this one thing. So for building a faith, we like to have focus. Now you could say, you see, that just as much as our Heavenly Father is seems a gentler and kinder concept, I'm not being facetious, but so would Father Christmas. If you understand the principle, this is a Western thing, but he's based on an idea, but in principle he's a concept, whom we choose to be kind and friendly and lovable, because this is the idea behind it, as a focus for children to behave all year long, to get their presents at Christmas or something like that. So that would be my opinions. What did I say in my written answer? The Buddha and Jesus, both wonderful teachers, were human, whereas the concept of God is a belief. Facts or fiction, a choice, a question, but not an opinion. Yeah, so it's facts or fiction. You can't compare a man to a god. There's no comparison. Whether you believe in gods or not, you can't compare a man to a god. We know there's man, gods require belief. So even if you 100% believe in God, you still can't compare him to the Buddha. Buddha was a man. Even being fully enlightened and having attained to parinibbana, he wouldn't have gone to the heavenly realms or become a god. In Buddhist cosmology, in the Buddhist religion, there are gods, many gods. There are many realms, heavens and hells. The Buddha attained to parinibbana, no further rebirth. This is not either conceivable or describable in human language, because it's outside of all phenomena of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and even thinking, unimaginable and therefore indescribable. God, we form a view, an opinion, a picture of in our minds, and that's okay, but we can't compare him directly to the Buddha, or to Jesus, or to Muhammad. Anyway, careful not to open another can of worms with that one, and I think this is possibly the time to bring this questions and answers talk to an end. And thank you very much for watching and your contributions of those questions and answers. Until next time, I hope if there's something useful there, you can use it. Or if not, just let it go and don't let it bother you. Thank you for watching. Anumodana. Sukhi Hotu, Sukhi Hotu, Sukhi Hotu. Be happy and stay well.